question, I'll raise my hand. Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the Keene of New England meetings. Today is our species ID day, so today's the day where we go over everything that we count underwater. We're privileged this morning to have Jon Grabowski from Northeastern University, who runs the Nahant sites and others.
Marissa runs those.
Yeah, with Marissa McMahon, who's running the sites up at the Darling Marine Center, and John's involved in that as well. So the Grabowski Lab has been doing this from the very beginning. So John's going to be presenting fishes and mobile invertebrates. So broadly, these are things that are covered by the Quad protocol, the SWATH protocol, and the FISH protocol in terms of mobile things. After John does his presentation, we'll take a break and we'll move on. The next thing we'll do is algae. And then from algae, we'll go to sessile invertebrates. And from this algae and sessile invertebrates, it's a mix of things in the UPCs, as well as species that are in quads and swaths as well. So I think, make sure you're good. All right. Oh. Yeah, okay, you're good. So with that, take it away, John.
Do you want to introduce it?
Oh, yeah, that's true. John has no idea who anyone in this room is. Well, not everyone. I've got online back there, so I'll run in the back and tell you who's online in just a minute. But yesterday we had Doug Rasher and one other person who's eluding me. Oh, Aaron. And actually, we also had the DSO at UConn as well, since UConn's thinking of setting up a site in Long Island Sound. So we'll go all the way from Long Island to, with Doug and Few, et cetera, setting up surveys up there all the way to down east. So super excited. So yeah, let's do just a quick round of introductions. Some of you know each other. We've also got some new people here today. So start up front.
I just got here with Ted Lyman doing his wave and Kelp project.
And your name?
Jeremiah.
Hi, I'm Felicia. I work in Invert's lab doing the RE program. I'm working on building a contraption that measures. I'm working on predation rate and kelp abundance.
I'm Isaac. I'm in Jared's lab. I'm working on a citizen science kelp project. Back to this.
I'm Nelson, also in Brian's lab and just working on whatever they need me to work on.
I'm Becky. I'm also in the Birds lab. I am studying how subtidal rockwell communities are responding to the warming thing. I kind of am the logistical coordinator for the Birds lab.
Yeah, Brecky's our Keene grad student. Woo!
Cool. Rob, I'm a PhD student. Working on ocean acidification by some fish. So, collaboration with
Awesome.
Cool.
On with that, take it away, John.
This is like the opposite of exciting talk to give because it's like systematics from the 70s. I plan to scoop before algae. Having seen algae 4 times, whoa. It scares me each time. All right, so I like to start by saying there are tons of probably are aware of for fish stuff, but I would recommend if you want to dig more, check out fishface.org. Fish is remains a good local guide that's both the 1953 version and the more recent. And there's other sites online. And these slides will be shared. All right. We're going to kind of go through each of these methods and talk about the fishes that we might see and how we might ID them apart. All right. So as you know, I think from versions of those who've been involved with this. The fish counts are quantified while swimming out in the transect. The fish in front of you in the water column, and these are primarily the demersal fishes, not benthic cryptic fishes that you're just not going to be able to count in a very quantitative fashion in a transect of that size. All right, so let's jump in. The first species common to the Gulf of Maine is hunter. It's a wrasse-like fish, which means it has a slightly elongated body. Not full-on eel-like. Very common on kelp, especially as juveniles. And I think some key characteristics include kind of wider caudal frontal. The caudal fin, definitely flattened. It's a perciform fish, which is the vast majority of the 25,000 species of fish are in that broad category, which means that it has one dorsal fin. We will actually see a lot of examples of species like the gaddids, the codfishes that don't. And the other thing I'd say is, the species that you might confuse it with is the hog. But you kind of compare the two. This is a stouter fish, got a bigger body, and it has thicker lips. And I think, the two together. I apologize that these are sketches and not pictures, but I do think they highlight some of the differences. You can really see the difference in the width of the body. These are species. Okay. We didn't allow them to introduce themselves. Cool. All right. I'll try to stay closer to the computer. That's okay. So I would not use coloration, given that these are fishes that are going to take on some of the coloration of whatever they're in. So it's really more of a body depth, and if you look at the size of the lips of the fish, those are the giveaway. Look at how blunt the head is of tautog versus the cunner. All right. The next fish that's somewhat similar to those past two is black sea bass. This is a fish that's becoming more prevalent in the Gulf of Maine. And again, it has a similar shape to the previous two, probably closer to the cunner. One dead giveaway is this top part of the the caudal fin. And it has a much larger mouth, though, than cunner or tautog. Let's see. Yeah, and so the dorsal fin is also a little bit different, but that's going to be a challenging one, I think, to ID underwater. Okay. How many of you have done any of these surveys before? Have you seen a lot of black sea bass? No? You have? I'm going to say down where you are, you probably see a lot. That makes sense. That fits with my grad student Marissa's work on black sea bass. All right. So again, if we compare black sea bass and here we have tautog, you can see that black sea bass have a much bigger mouth. They're not quite as stout. The tip of their head is a little bit narrower. Have you guys been seeing tautog? Okay. And any troubles IDing the two of those apart? They're pretty different. Okay. And I don't suspect anyone will struggle with striped bass. So we'll keep moving. Haddock is one I don't suspect we'll see. Probably none in the survey. This is a deeper fish. I mean, the black line and the spot, directly beneath the lateral line, kind of close to the pectoral fin, are dead giveaways. It has a barbel, but so do other codfishes. Okay. which is, all right. What about cod? Has anyone seen cod? This is one we might start to see. I mean, I've heard talk. I mean, in my days of diving in the Gulf of Maine, I never saw it, but I've heard talk of people seeing more in shallow water. Let's not incentivize shady data. It was definitely a cod. And let's also make certain that the people in the room are 21. All right. Pollock is one that I would be surprised if people have not seen. Again, like the dead giveaway for the codfishes, the 3 dorsal fins. This is the most pelagic of those first 3 species. Cod is probably the most demersal. And so this one, you will see in schools from hundreds to thousands in relatively shallow water. And I've done a lot of video survey throughout the Gulf of Maine and seen them, you know, in kelpie habitats at like, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 meters. Not 50 meters, obviously, but in terms of on kelp, but on the rocky bottom. So let's look at the 3 together. So the spot is a dead giveaway for the haddock, also the black lateral line. The big way I try to ID cod and pollock apart is by looking at the one, cod has a very distinct barbel. You know, it's probably the most pronounced of the 3 of these gattids, whereas pollock has a more slender caudal fin and caudal peduncle, and it's more angling in, whereas cod's caudal fin is more flat. Okay. That makes sense. And I would expect you to see some, what do you call it, sculpins and sea ravens. All right. Has anyone seen spotted hake? Now, this is a deeper fish, so the dead giveaway for this is this, you know, almost looks like it's taken out of Microsoft Words, like different forms of dash lines. But we're not going to see it. Winter flounder is one I would expect that you guys have seen a good bit of. All right. So it's a pleuronectid or a right-eyed flounder. Mind you that the categorization of flounders as right-eyed and left-eyed predates genetic tools, and it's not necessarily the best way to separate these 2 families of fishes. But with that in mind, some of the characteristics to look for in the winter flounder, you know, no ocelli or spots, got a really straight lateral line, which we'll see is very different from some of the other flounders. And it has a relatively small mouth, especially compared to, you know, something like a halibut or yellowtail. So the window pane flounder is a left eye. And look at how different this lateral line is. Really curves up. So very different than the previous winter flounder. It also has a longer body. So we just kind of go back. Okay. All right. I love the ray counts that I have there. Obviously not for underwater identification. I have used it in the labs. All right. So summer flounder. Look at the size of the mouth. It's a left eye flounder. It again has a relatively flat lateral line. Oh no, sorry. You can see a little bit arch there. Hard to see in this. Can we turn off a little bit of light?
Yeah, sure.
I can. Well, yeah. It does look more sophisticated.
Confirmed. Hunter and Pollock, top 2 with Rhode Island pulling up last 2.
What is the, like, what do you think the proportion of the total is that? Or a accounted for by those two species? Are we talking like 90%? Okay, sorry. Giving you lots of requests.
Yeah, feel free.
You're not looking at Excel?
John, where are you talking?
That was said in jest. I know you better than that. Just kidding. I even try to do it myself. All right. That was good. We'll go back to where we were. That way we can put people to sleep and not see that they're sleeping. All right. Let's keep moving. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong way. All right, and then the 4-spot flounder, again, if you see this, you're probably going to know what it is. Okay? All right, so there you have our 4 major flounder species that we would expect to see in this range. Those of you that are working south of the Cape might see southern flounder. What's your question, Nelson?
What would you say is the easiest way to tell the difference? Just the lip size?
Well, we'll look at the mouth size for sure. The other thing is that, like, I would expect, I mean, unless it's the rare winter, rare summer that's, expressing as a right and a winter as a left, that's also a pretty good giveaway. I mean, the tail fin looks a little different, but these are drawings. So I don't think I've ever used the tail fin to identify a flounder in the water. The other thing is that, the other thing I would look at is the lateral line. So the summers is really arched, and the winters is really flat.
Will the winter not ever have spots? Summer mites?
I mean, I think you might see spots on the winter. You're not going to see the ocelli like that, though. Yeah. You might see some modeling, so it might look like there's some spots there. Yeah. This kind of spotting pattern I tend to like ignore. It's when you see like clear ocelli that you're like, okay, these are fixed spots. Whereas this could be a function of like it's hanging out on a gravelly bottom, and so it's just pure camo. All right. And there's the yellowtail flounder. Have you guys seen this at all? This is a deeper flounder. Probably not. All right, let's keep going then. All right, the wolffish. Has anyone seen this? This is also a slightly deeper species. It's also been considered in listing for endangered. It was not listed, but it's not as abundant as it once was. Okay, if you see anything like this with the teeth like that, don't put your hand near the mouth. Whatever you do, scallop shells, not bay scallops, but sea scallops, and snap them into pieces. So I can only imagine what they would do. All right. This is another one I don't think you guys have seen. This northern sea otter, you have?
Yeah, not often at all.
Okay. All right, so anybody, are you able to ID it as a sea robin and not a sculpin underwater pretty easily? The free rays. All right, yeah, that's the giveaway. Yeah, so if you see that, you know you're dealing with something other than a sea raven or sculpin. I don't know why I don't have that with the sea ravens and sculpins, but we'll get to those soon. Silver hake or whiting, I would expect to not see. It's going to probably be higher in the water column. But the big head and big mouth are giveaways. It's a gatted, but unlike those first 3 gaddeds I showed you, it actually has the fused. So it only has 2 fins because the second and third are fused, or what would be the third. All right. Ocean pout, something I would expect you guys occasionally see. Yeah. It has not? It's something that you would expect to find shallow enough, and I mean the lip is the giveaway, like eel-like shape, and you're like, okay, is this a wolffish, or if it's a large eel-like fish, it's probably either a wolffish or a ocean pout, and if it has like the teeth hanging down, it's probably a wolffish. Stay away. If it has that big lip, it's ocean palate. All right, northern pipefish. Everyone should be able to identify. It's the seahorse that's not a seahorse. Canadian redfish, I've probably not seen. It's another one that's deeper than we're probably going to see, but I haven't. Like if you see it in our zone, though, the red coloration should still be able to be seen. Shallow enough. What about scup or porgy? You guys are probably seeing a lot. Yeah, and they're pretty easy to tell apart. You know, this looks nothing like anything we've looked at so far. You know, the silver looks like almost like a pinfish from where I'm from, down south. And the kind of long head that's really steep is a giveaway too. Yeah. Okay. But probably have to be at the southern end. Once scup become really common here, we're no longer going to be doing keen. Then we get to stop doing these brutal surveys. Yes, I'm glad that you found another silver lining to a really sad scenario. Bluefish, have these been seen in it? Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't expect them either. I mean, I did catch them in my graduate work in like 3 feet of water, so they definitely come in to well, that was on shallow shoaly area in warm water in North Carolina. Their fins, you know, the closest thing to fins like that is a striped bass, but it looks nothing like a striped bass, obviously. I think you'll know what it is if you see a large fish coming through. They're pretty good swimmers. They're almost torpedo-like. No. I want to say it's a, I forget the name of the family, but I don't think it's a salmon. But it's definitely a more prehistoric fish. It's not like the perciform fish. So the northern puffer, again, this is a pretty easy one to ID apart. Also sounds like we've probably seen a couple of these. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to, more exciting to hear what we're seeing than this. The species code is SPMA. We should have made this spam. Right, well, that's good reason to keep going. Yeah, so the American eel, any of these? Eel like fish up to 150 centimeters. So, you know, those other two that were eel-like were, you know, have a lot girthier body than American eels do. And so, like, you know, one giveaway that's American eel is the start of its dorsal fins, you know, well beyond the pectoral fin. And these can be quite large, you know, 1.5 meters. It's a pretty good sized fish. All right, we've talked about our bony fishes, Gillios fishes. Let's go into our cartilaginous fishes. So here you have the little skate. It has no spawns. Nose. Are we seeing any skates? Okay. While getting not during the transect? Yeah, I mean, some of these ones like winter skate and little skate, I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually get one in the thing. But they're not going to be easy to identify apart underwater. Because the spots that you see on winter skate there are not always present. You know? And so the other difference between winter and little skate is that the winter skate's nose is a little bit more pronounced, but that's going to be hard to do underwater. All right, and then spiny dogfish. This one's a pretty easy one. You see a small shark that has horns on the first and second dorsal fin. No anal fin. It's probably spiny dogfish. Farther south, you guys might see smooth dogfish. I don't think I have that in here. No. So let's go to swath counts. And then we'll get into, we're not going to go over these again, but we're going to add in species that you might see. The lumpfish. I can say, like, I'm surprised you don't have more records of it, because it is one of those things. Was it in the? Okay, the sculpins. Yep. So we'll take a look at the lumpfish and the lump sucker together in a second. Obviously, if it's a big lumpfish, it is the lumpfish because the lump sucker only gets like this big. This big being like 5 to 10 centimeters. For those online. But they're pretty easy to tell apart when you look at the two of them. And so you'll quickly know if it's a small lumpfish-like fish, whether it's a lump sucker or lumpfish, based on their fin structure and their shape. The lumpfish looks a lot more round than the lump sucker. All right, so the sculpins, Myoxocephalus scorpius, or the short-fin sculpin, and Myoxocephalus octodecans spinosus, the longhorn sculpin, tell apart the horn, or the spine, basically, right above the pectoral fin is the dead giveaway. The slenderness of the fish is really going to be challenging to tell underwater without having two of them right together. The size of the eye might help you, but I would really try to look. All right.
Is there no spine on the sharp horn, or it's just
Much shorter. Yeah. Yeah. And I would be surprised if that longhorn sculpin, from my experience in the Gulf of Maine and shallow waters, is more common than the shorthorn. And then this one's really easy to tell, similar to those past two fishes, in that it's dorso-ventrally flattened, so that's probably good at feeding on crustaceans, with its wide mouth. But it also has all these barbels along the lower lip and frills all around its head, and then along even the it looks like a Charlie Brown dog house after it's been in a dog fight. But it's like its fin is torn apart. It's an interesting adaptation. All right. A rock gunnel, Pholus gunnelus. This is a very common species in shallow water. I'm guessing there's lots of rock gunnels in our survey. Yeah, so all right, and so one of the things that I look for is like the patterning of the black spots. Another, lower jaw protrudes a little bit, which means it extends out above the upper jaw. That's where cuttlefish is not something you see in the water. But let's look. Yeah, the way it moves, it looks like a snake. This is much, much smaller than the other eel-like fishes. It's not going to be anywhere near the size of a conger eel. I'd say like 20 centimeters is probably what you're talking about, as compared to something that can grow to 150 and is common at 100. That being the American eel. Are we getting many shanties? I wouldn't be surprised if not. Yeah, so the Arctic and the radiated shanties. So these are definitely not they're not going to be eel-like like the rock gunnel. They're going to be, you're not going to see them curled around like the rock gunnel will just be hanging on the bottom almost like a snake. They're also stouter, and then the radiated has this distinct banding pattern at the front of the anterior side of the dorsal fin. Okay. And they have a wider caudal fin than the square kind of caudal fin of Pholus gunnelus. All right, so the final sculpin that we did not mention yet is the little grubby. It's our smallest one. It's rarely greater than 15 centimeters, so you're not talking very big. So if it's larger than 15 centimeters, it's probably a long spine or short spine or short horn sculpin. My sense is if we're talking about really small sculpins, we're probably lumping these, right? Yeah, these are anything less than 10 is getting NYSC. Don't try to identify these underwater. And don't try to capture them because you'll never finish your never-ending survey. All right, I'm not helping you sell Keen. These people already bought in though. All right, crustaceans. Everyone knows how to identify Borealis from Iratus. The bumpy margin. Oh, I remember Borealis. It actually can be a little bit larger, but to me, if you look at the two of them together, we're gonna have smooth that margin, anterior margin of its carapace. People talk about the rock crab being irritable and using behavioral traits, but we know that those are really plastic. So I would tend to go with a fixed trait, a more fixed trait like the anterior margin of the carapace. The other big tell that you're talking about cancer crabs is this is wide body crabs. 9 teeth on the anterior margin. That's a lot of teeth for crabs. I mean, many of the species that I typically study have more like 5. And Carcinus manus, the green crab, is an example. So it has 5 very pronounced teeth along the anterior margin of each side. And it's a very common crab in New England, as everyone knows. All right. Are we seeing many blue crabs yet? Down south? Okay. I mean, this one's pretty easy to see it show up thanks to the blue coloration, but also the swimmer leg of the Kelp on the east side is is built so they can swim, and those points along the carapace margin is really typical of really characteristic of a blue crab. Okay, and then we don't need to talk much about Homerus americanus. All right, let's get into the decorator crabs. So there's Hyas, and this one, like, look at the shape of the body, like more elongate. And then Labinia, a little bit more rounded, I think of this one being a little bit more triangular, and this one being a little bit more rounded. And these are both, decorator crabs, even if, this one is not decorated, And it's weird to me that, like, it is more common to see it, I think, in New England without much attached to it, whereas farther south, you almost always see it decorated from my experience working in the Carolinas. Nice. All right, maybe I should cool it on the invasion front. Ovalipes ocellatus is another swimming crab, so it's a fortunate or it's a relative of the blue crab. But it doesn't have that lateral spine, on the most lateral portion of the carapace. But it's also called a calico crab. And that's because of this calico patterning. Lady crab's a little bit dated as a common name. Sorry. I don't have anything for octopus because last year you guys taught me that the plural of octopus is octopedes, and you can't identify this. You should not be doing these surveys. All right, myself included. The moon snail. Now this is a common one that probably everyone here is familiar with. So I'm not gonna spend too much time, but the spire really flat. Also, this can achieve really large size, much bigger than some of the other similar shaped snails. So if we think about some of our predatory whelks, and we have the wavy whelk here. I don't know if this is common in the survey. Wow, so we're not going to spend a long time. Is that true of Jamestown?
Yeah, this is something that I'm always looking for guys at it, shoals, front and back, and all of it, that side of that. They're
Maybe like-
I mean, they're kind of like this big.
Yeah, they're not nearly as big as like a channeled whelk
Yeah.
or a, knobbed whelk.
Yeah. Bigger lobster, more likely those.
Yeah, they're a lot more common down south,
We're not gonna see
which is I like them. Okay. So the 10-ring whelk too, like I'm guessing this is not going to be seen in our survey, but pretty similar shape, but looks like it has more distinct ring pattern. Anything you want to say about the 10-ring whelk? No. All right, let's keep moving then. All right. So the Busicon species include a number of whelks that are, as Jared said, are far more common down south. The channel one, though, has a really distinct channel pattern along the spire giveaway. And so this is a whelk that can be, I'd say, maybe 25 centimeters from point to point. So similar species, but without the channeling, is the knobbed whelk. And so, again, this is one of your larger whelks. Big predator of hard clams and other bivalve species. All right, that's it for our mollusks. Let's move into the econoderms. These are ones that I don't think have been seen in any survey. Any cucumbers? I think we used to look at more species of these when we did this, but I think we've narrowed it to this one. Oh, so they ended corrected. Okay. Yeah, I mean, all right, let's move into our sea stars. Serious Forbesi, that giveaway there is the color of the madreporite, really distinctly orange. And then for Rubens, it's white. So these are two that look very similar other than that, to the naked eye. Now, has anyone found any sun stars? I mean, the spiny sun star is pretty distinct from these other earlier stars based on the number of legs, I would say. I think so, because I've never seen these in southern New England. Have you? Yeah. Okay. And then the blood star Henricia sanguinenta, pretty easy to tell apart based on the narrow, slender legs of the star and its coloring. All right, one more sun star that again really relevant for farther north. Right, cryptic fish and the benthic. Okay, so we already talked about these. Again, all being identified together, the sculpins. The shanties we've already talked about. The spiny lumpsucker. So here's this lumpfish-like fish, but look at how this thing. If you remember the lumpfish, it was much more like a perfect soccer ball, whereas this one isn't. It also had no dorsal fin, whereas the lumpsucker does. So if you see a small lumpfish-like fish, look for that dorsal fin, look at the shape, and you should be able to tell them apart. From my experience, usually when it's 5 centimeters or less, it's a lumpsucker. And when I've never seen a really small lumpfish. I wouldn't worry about the color because I think, again, like it tends to be a pretty cryptic fish. And so like you tend to see them on the ropes. Like I feel like most often found lumpfish when we pulled them into the boat, pulling up traps. And then, like, so they're on like a fouled rope that has like a lot of orangish algae. And so yeah, there you see the two together. Once again, the lumpfish, especially this example, looks almost like somebody stretched it out from the dorsal to the ventral side, and has no dorsal fin. Okay. Well, I guess you could say it does have one way back there, but wow. Okay. Such a crazy fish. I don't know how it swims. The snake blenny. We've not seen any of these. It's a pretty rare fish. I've only seen one or two of them. All right. I mean, the one big difference with Fullus gunnelus, if you remember Fullus gunnelus, that dorsal fin starts much farther back. I mean, the same with the conger eel. Sorry, Fullus gunnelus, it does not start farther back. I was thinking of the conger eel. But Fullus gunnelus, I think, is easier to tell apart from that snake blenny because of the spots along the dorsal fin, and it's also actually deeper than the snake blenny. All right. We've already talked about the channeled whelk, talked about the knobbed whelk, we talked about the wavy whelk, 10-ring whelk, eastern oyster. This is only native oyster species in the Northeast, and but you might also see an invasive species, Austria aegilis. The easy way to one dead giveaway you're looking at an oyster is the irregular shell shape. So it's going to be a bivalve that can get up to several, 20 to 30 centimeters, but you're typically going to see them in the range of, I'd say, like between 2.5 and 10 centimeters. So that irregular pattern tells you you're not looking at a clam, you're looking at an oyster. But then to tell these two species apart is pretty easy. The eastern oyster tends to be more elongate, and the Austria aegilis, the European oyster, tends to be more cupped, so it's more circular in its shape. It also tends to be more of an individual oyster, whereas the eastern oyster is more common, either attached in clusters to rocks or forming entire oyster reefs, as probably all have seen. Yeah. So the jingles, that's a very good point. In fact, I've done some oyster reef work where, we get lots of jingle settlement, and the jingle it looks like a little oyster, but same thing with actually crepidula can confuse people. But they have the jingle shell tends to be almost shiny, and a much smoother, more uniform shell shape. The crepidula is, you can pop them off. It's not even a bivalve. Atlantic sea scallop, probably not going to see in our thing, but if you see a scallop, that's cool that you saw them off. All right, we have the same set of stars.
Can I say anything about Australia?
Yes.
So Larry Harris and these guys, some more common farmers. So that's the thing that I want to
Cool.
keep an eye on. They might be replacing the
Interesting.
There's actually a master's thesis that where I sort of documenting the disease through not as comprehensively documented as the California racing disease, and kind of passively documented.
Huh.
It's actually a really nice house. You guys have the one?
I've seen them.
West Coast did it. I'm not sure about here. Oh, yeah, here we go. It is Kate and Jessica Del Sesto. And Marty's everyone's show as well. Yeah, so if anyone's interested in this, I can send them the pieces. But it was 2015 pieces from URI.
Nice.
It's very full BCI.
Great. All right, so we've already talked about all these pretty quickly, but again, they're pretty straightforward. We talked about the orange-footed cucumber, the scarlet cucumber. This is another one that's pretty rare. Yeah, they're probably not going to see, and this one color is the diagnostic. I'm no expert of sea cucumbers, so if anyone knows any other great ideas for how to ID these apart, please speak up. The brittle star, you know, this, were we counting this? Yeah, because they're so abundant. Okay, gotcha. And everyone knows how to tell the brittle star. Yeah, good. All right. So the green sea urchin, apart from the purple urchin, the other common species here, the size of the test relative to the spines is much greater than purple sea urchin, and also the colors are shapes of the spines are even somewhat different. Sand dollar. This is again, we're probably in the wrong habitat if we start seeing lots of sand dollars. And then small crustaceans, these are the last two things. We have seen some mud crabs, I believe. This is a common species, especially farther south. Common oyster reefs. You know, I don't know if you search the eyes. One of the bigger of the mud crabs, and has a dactyl on it. Sorry, the tooth on the dactyl, a dead giveaway. The other diagnostic I use is kind of the roundish shape of the carapace with much smaller teeth. Tells you you're not looking at a green crab. So this is a xanthic crab similar to the stone crab farther south. And then, sadly, hemigrapsis, which is but more so in the title. I still remember Jim Moran's kid out at Shoals in the late 90s or early O's finding like the first hemigrapsis. And now the density, like at our sites in the haunt, are like 100 per meter squared. And it's actually crowding out Carcinus. All right, that's all I have for the species. Thankfully, a lot of them are really familiar. I think you could almost sleep through my talk, but you better pay attention if you're going to do the algae. Because that's.
So any overall question? One thing I will note is that for a lot of these species, if you look back and forth, the quad sheet, see that there's side cutoffs. So we record some things as juveniles and others not. So for example, we record quads, we record both juvenile and adult urchins, and they're pretty straightforward. Similar cutoffs, and some of those we sample both quads and swans. And that's we still don't really know what's the best way to sample some of these species. So
I thought with quads we were doing, you know, we're only doing small, and then with swath and demersal we're doing it only big, like okay, like you know, like the sculpins, you would less than 10 would only be counted in the quad, right? And the swath and the fish transects count only bigger than 15. Which I think agrees with what it says here. Actually, and I think we even in the fish counts, we're not even counting the sculpins because they are benthic. And if you're looking for them, you're going to have a hard time capturing fish that are mobile that swim through the transect in front of you. So yeah, so swath counts would get the you know, adult and larger sculpins. So longhorn and shorthorn greater than 10. That's right. So the way I think of it is like the fish counts are demersal fish, big fish swimming along the water. The swath is really where you're looking in the benthos and you're looking for, you know, adult fish, but you're starting to include some more cryptic species. And that's the swath, and the quadrat is where you're getting like the, you know, really small things that you couldn't hope to count in a bigger transect. Yeah, I guess that they are truly a, but we're looking for big flounder, and you're not going to get them unless you do a pretty big swath. So do you? What do you want to do? You gonna,
It's about 11 right now, so let's take a break. For those of you who are on the live stream, there are a couple of you on there right now. We're going to stop this. I will send out a link to the next post-break session, so you don't just sit here and listen to our coffee break, because that would probably be fairly boring. Yeah, and we will also switch computers. So, where's the stop? Oh, I think I'm strange getting used to this. So yeah, we will stop this presentation for now, and then we will continue in a little bit with algae, and then we'll move on. I'll take a lunch break and then move on to invertebrates. So I'm going to stop this right now, and we'll see you guys back in a minute.